Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Game Changers podcast, brought to you by Damascus Gaming, hosted by me, Daniel Teske, and Luis Ballester. Unfortunately, I had to re-record the intro to this episode you're about to watch because the audio had some popping issues, so we had to re-record it right now. But with that, we're going to get right into the episode. Hope y'all enjoy it. I'm excited this time because we get to bring on one of our awesome esport players, KingGambler, who has been competing in the FGC now for pretty close to a decade. Actually, I think, how close are you to a decade of competition right now?
I'm currently at 9 years.
9 years.
So we're about a year off.
Yeah, so yeah, right there. So he's been doing this for a long time, but we wanted to kind of bring him in and kind of talk about basically his career, the things that he has seen that have evolved over the FGC. I mean, because he's been here for a very long time, and his career has been outstanding. He's competed, especially like in this last year, more lands than I think I've seen anybody else compete. So really just kind of want to get into it, but like Gambler, like what got you into wanting to compete in the FGC?
So the FGC has definitely felt to me like more of like a competitive era, and I've been super competitive my whole life. Not to say that other esports aren't. It's just the matter of fact of like a fighting game being one-on-one situation, compared to like a shooter game like COD. There's teams, in Valorant, there's teams, League of Legends, they have teams. Like fighting games, it's strictly one versus one. You sit down, you're playing versus one other player, and there's truthfully like no way to like blame anything else besides yourself. So especially being super competitive, like I've always been like trying to prove that I was like better than the person I was playing against. So it's exactly about why I joined the fighting game community. Not only that, but I also just have a strong love and passion for Mortal Kombat. I grew up playing Mortal Kombat at the arcade with my family. It's definitely, not a stranger. Everyone knows what Mortal Kombat is. It's more of like a legacy game, and to be listed as one of the, professional players for Mortal Kombat, it's definitely an honor to be a part of the fighting game community.
That's awesome. I mean, that was one of the things that I remember, when we were first really starting to turn, what would become Damascus Gaming into an esports organization. One of the things that I really wanted to get into was the FGC. And it's really also for the reasons that you just kind of explained, which is like for me, it's one of the purest styles of esports because it's a 1v1. There is no one else to blame but yourself if you get knocked out of the
Yep.
bracket. You know, bar, if some like extreme thing happens that like you can't control. And it's also one of the things I think that like Luis likes about this, about the FGC as well, because I mean, even with StarCraft 2, which is like one of his favorite games,
Absolutely.
it's a
I was just thinking
1v1.
about that.
I mean, there's no, oh, hey, like it was my teammates' fault, like that didn't happen. But in the same regard, too, your teammates can't carry you. So if you succeed, it's also based on your individual performance. So I guess for me, like, what games were you looking at? Because I know you started off with Injustice 2, not to kind of give away the plot of your backstory. But what about Injustice 2 is what got you like, hey, like I like not just the FGC, but I want to compete in Injustice 2.
So before we kind of like tie into Injustice 2, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I actually before like NRS games, I actually competed in like a platformer type game. I played in PlayStation All Stars
Oh, that's cool.
Battle Royale. That was my first competitive game at age 13.
That's
So
awesome.
13, wow.
I actually, yeah, I competed in online tournaments. I was a part of that scene. I still talk to some of the guys from the community like to this day. And you realize like that was when I was 13 and I'm 25 now. That was 12 years ago. So I still to keep in contact with some of those guys is definitely like really interesting and really nice. And this is why I love gaming. Cause so now let's tie back to Injustice 2. Injustice 2 was also made by NetherRealm Studios, which is what I'm known for as being an NRS player. Not only just Mortal Kombat, but Injustice. Injustice looked at upon as the superhero game with DC. and it basically it's a whole different game also compared to Mortal Kombat because it's more similar to like games like Street Fighter, games like not necessarily Tekken, but I would say more or less like Street Fighter because it's back to block. There's no block button in that game, so you definitely have to
Yep.
either block by walking back or holding down depending on what your opponent's doing. So yeah, it's super unique, and not only that, but to be able to like play as one of my favorite DC like superheroes and compete in a fighting game for it, it's definitely it was so cool to be able to like play Green Lantern. That was my main. Play Green Lantern. Character that I thought was super cool. Doctor Fate. I mean, Batman, Superman. There was so many beautiful DC characters that were in Injustice that it really just sparked my interest to be an NRS player.
That's awesome. That's really really cool. Yeah, that's one thing. I barely played any of the Injustice series until one day I had like Luis. I was staying at my house and he decided to crack the Xbox open and put that game on the screen. I'm like, dude, like I'm a decent video game player. I got this, and he proceeded to beat me all the way across the screen back and forth.
It didn't take long for you to catch up, though.
It
You
didn't take
decided to
long.
grind that game.
But it's one of the things, and the reason why I'm saying this too is like I just want to like just capitalize on like the impressive skill sets you have to have. Not just in like the FGC, but just to be able to compete in games like Injustice. But then also bring it over to Mortal Kombat. Like people just think to themselves, like, oh, if you're good at one fighting game, therefore you must be good at them all. Like the fact you were
No.
able to switch from Injustice 2 into Mortal Kombat, really is like an impressive feat. So, you're competing in Injustice 2, like you're doing well. What made you want to do that switch over to MK?
So before Injustice 2, like I actually played in Mortal Kombat X. So I was kind of like my introduction.
Okay.
But the thing is, the beautiful thing is saying that, um, Mortal Kombat X was my introduction. So obviously I was more of like casual. Like I played in like some tournaments, but I wasn't really known.
Yeah.
I didn't really get my name out there. I was just more of like a casual, trying to learn fundamentals, and that's perfectly fine too. Because that's how every great player starts. They have to know the fundamentals of the game that they're wanting to like get into, and it's definitely time consuming. Not only that, but it's frustrating.
You need
But
discipline. Yep.
yeah, it's definitely, you need discipline. You definitely need to, just be patient with yourself too.
Hmm.
Um, but kind of, let's tie along to all the like basically put the puzzle together.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat X, Injustice 2, and then Mortal Kombat 11, all three of them are very different games because a game like Mortal Kombat X, there was a run button, so you like could run across the screen. Your like legit was based off stamina.
Got you.
Compared to like Mortal Kombat 11, there's no run button. You are basically what they call wave dashing, to where you have to be able to like move using the D-pad or hitbox or whatever you're using, whatever your preference is. You have to move, and then you had to block, and you had to basically have like a repetitive method to be able to make your character wave dash, meaning your character goes faster across the screen. So like it was definitely like significant changes, and we constantly keep seeing that in NRS games because now let's go to Mortal Kombat 1. It's completely different as far as the movement. Like they're all very different, and this is why another top player, Rewind, he mentioned that being a top player in NRS is definitely like harder than like other fighting games to like remain at the top because the game constantly keeps switching and the meta and everything just changes as an NRS player. Like you don't know what you can like predict like upcoming in the future.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, and like it's a totally different series, but it was almost the same thing. So when I was younger, like the games that I would watch a lot were Halo. I loved watching the MLG circuit, especially like the Halo 2 era. One of the things that I saw in that era was when the game switched from Halo 2 to Halo 3, a lot of your professionals that were really outstanding at the mechanics of Halo 2 just could not come to Halo 3. because they switched a bunch up. It went from being more of what I would say an individual skill-based game to now it's like a team-based game. Because in Halo 2, like if you had a really good like single or duo like on like your team, you could carry that entire roster. In Halo 3, that was not the case. You would just get like completely annihilated. So different games, but kind of like the same thing where like as the games like keep changing in titles, the mechanics also change in there. Um, I do
I
kind
would
of
say
want to. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to add to that because a lot of people don't realize that it doesn't have to be something major like removing or adding sprint, right? That's something that's pretty obvious. That's going to change a lot of how the game works. But sometimes it's also just overall improvement in graphics and improvement in frame rate that would change how the game ultimately
Yep.
plays because your
100%.
calculation changes. So esports players like Joey here have to read every patch note, have to know pretty much what is being changed in the core of the game so that they can adapt to the new changes. And that's something that Joey brought up, that even just from the same game changing 1 year to the next, it's a whole different environment.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's all muscle memory.
Hmm.
Bringing up patch notes. I mean, you have to adjust. Like that's you have to adjust quickly in fighting games because one day you're playing on one patch, and then let's just fast forward, like because it legit happened recently. Final Combat was recent, and within the next week, the game changed once again. So
Yep.
like you have to read the patch notes. You have to not only read it, you have to go through it. You have to experience it for yourself. You have to say, okay, this was what happened previously. What changed? Did
Yep.
did something change? If so, then what is the change?
And
And
how does it impact all your
and
combos?
how does it impact? And that is exactly what I was getting to. How does it impact you as a player? Does it make the matchup
Mhm.
better? Does it make it worse? I mean, that is constantly what you're having to adjust and do every time that you are entering a fighting game.
And developers are aware of this. Even like before Final Combat, they didn't want to change any more things. Wasn't it the Cyrax cameo that was thought to have been a mistake?
They
The
did,
changes.
yeah. It was a mistake, and come the following week, whenever they did an update, they reverted it back.
There you go.
Wow.
But during Final Combat, the developers went, "We're not touching that. We're leaving it in." So
Correct.
in the final tournament of the season, where the top players of the world are competing, they allowed that to stay because everybody had already adjusted and developed that muscle memory. And to have changed it at the last minute would have thrown everybody off.
Correct.
I will say, actually, that's an NRSW, by the way, because I know other
Hmm.
developers. I'm not going to go into specifics about it, but they don't care. They'll like do a patch, 24, 48 hours before a major tournament hits, and you'll see all the players of that game just on Twitter, just what are you doing? So the fact that NRS held back from doing that, it's actually a W for them. It's actually really good to see them trying to maintain that competitive integrity. Um, so I'm going to use that as a segue as well into what I want to start talking about here at the end of this podcast. So obviously you have to practice, you have to grind, you have to get in there and create that muscle memory. So when you're up on the main stage, you're able to pull off those clutch moments, which in reality aren't really clutch moments. It's hours upon hours upon hours of discipline and practice that then enable you to read what's happening and then make that awesome combo and honestly that strategic move in front of
Hmm.
everybody. How many hours go into practice? Like I would say even starting like a few months away from a major tournament.
Um, I get asked that question a lot too, being a streamer and being looked upon as one of the top players. People just they're curious, especially those who are wanting to like be a part of it or basically, have any interest, to get basically, inside the mind of a top player. And one of the common questions is what does it take? How many hours go into it, or just give a little bit of an explanation. And I really like to say, like, top players, especially in the very beginning, they're putting in at least minimum 8 hours a day. I mean, it's legit as if you're going to work. You're
Hmm.
working a 9 to 5. They legit prioritize it as their full time job. And
And
that's
right, and
that's
it's
Go
and
ahead,
it's not
sorry.
just playing the game, right, Joey? It's
right.
also like reviewing your videos of previous matches.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so much. I tell people like, hey, you can't only just get online and go play. Like that's not how it works. It's definitely it's a whole like as if you're in school. You have to, you're learning the material, and then you might get thrown a quiz here and there, and then eventually you get an exam. And if you're not studying for the exam, you can't pass.
Yep.
You can't succeed, and that is what fighting games is all about. I mean, especially all these players, we all study one another. And if you're not studying the proper things to beat the player, then you're not going to succeed your mission as far as moving on and staying in the winner side of the bracket of a bracket, or just overall improving, because that's what it takes overall. So there's so much as far as minimum players will play 8 hours a day. Not only that, but they're watching film a couple hours, and they're taking notes another couple hours. So just right there, that is 12 hours.
Wow.
Hmm.
So I mean, there is so much, and this is why, it has a toll, on your mental. And this is why, a lot of players, they always like to say, make sure you're taking care of your mental, because fighting games is strictly to test your mental. And not only fighting games, any esport is to test your mental. It is really to test your composure, your patience, your emotion. Like, it's all crucial as far as becoming a better player.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I will say too, like with that as well, we talked about like, wait, sorry, like you talked about the mental aspect of it. You talked about like actually have to put in the reviews and what also are you doing physically? I mean, because obviously, holding a controller for hours every single day can be very taxing on your hands, on your wrists. What are you doing outside of those hours as well to make sure that physically you are prepared for these events as well?
It's just watching the film.
Yeah.
You sit back, you're on your phone or your laptop, computer, whatever you prefer, and you just throw up a YouTube video. Not only that, you throw up a stream. That way you're able to relax yourself, like take it from someone who had carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
Eventually you're gonna have to basically give yourself a break. Be sure to watch yourself. You don't want to overdo it.
Yeah.
I overdid it at one point. Had carpal tunnel. I was out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Felt like I was back in sports, and how they put me on the injured reserve. I couldn't even. Crazy to say, I couldn't even play a video game.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't. I couldn't even do that. So you're kind of left, on the sidelines. You have to watch, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there's so much that you can also learn from just other top players, and not only even if you're playing the character, like if you two aren't playing the same character, that's okay, because you're able to still analyze and break down the game from multiple different perspectives, multiple different aspects. And that's the beauty of being able to level up, is there's multiple different ways of getting better. It's not a linear road. It's not
Yeah.
just not rainbows, it's not sunshines. I always say that as a top player, it's not rainbows, it's not sunshines. You're gonna run into stormy, rainy days, and it's gonna be frustrating. And this is why it goes back to testing your mental. Those who are basically able to mentally push themselves are going to be great,
Yeah.
and those who
Absolutely.
can't, I mean, it's eventually it's just gonna hold them back. That's just the truth.
It's
Agreed.
just you have to decide what type of person you're going to be and whether or not you're serious about undertaking an esports title. Another thing that I wanted to ask Joe here was, when it comes to being ready for tournament, right? Keeping your body ready for that. It's as much as the game plays a big role into practicing for it. I also know that your reaction time, which is how you pretty much the nutrients that you take before an event, the exercise that you've been doing, how does that play into performance at a tournament?
Yeah, so talking about some outside hobbies, I like to just, go to the gym. Because not only that, you're able to just clear your head, you get a clear mindset. You're able to just, what I like to say, you distract yourself from the game, or you basically take a step back. And not only that, but you're taking care of yourself. That is one thing I really started to notice is, when I started getting back into the gym, doing my exercises outside of the game, I'm able to just prioritize myself, and I'm able to put myself in a good mindset to basically get myself ready for whatever, like, I have to face upcoming. Not only that, but just being able to find like Hobbies. I, play, sports outside of playing games. And it's also able to just be able to improve my emotion, put myself in a good mood. Because if I only just like stayed in my room and played like, let's just say, Mortal Kombat all day, I
Yeah.
would probably not be in a great mood because of how stressful it is.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. Eventually
Absolutely.
you just need to give yourself that break. And that could just be going for a walk, going to the gym, spending time with family, anything to be able to clear your mind. A good friend once told me the game is always going to be there
Yeah.
whenever you're ready. Whenever you want to play, the game will be there for you. It's not going anywhere. So, be sure to, appreciate the moments in life as far as just getting out, exploring life, because one thing that I've been telling, these younger players is enjoy the youth that you have now, because when you get older, it flies by.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm on nearly a decade of doing this. That means I started when I was around 15, 16 years old, and I'm 25 right now. Time flies, so make sure to at least appreciate, the small things in life.
Absolutely. Especially when you still don't have to pay taxes.
Yep. I will say that though, like it's 100%, especially as you get older too, time just seems to go by faster.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I
Hmm.
I remember when I first, joined the military, I was like, man, like it just felt like it was going so slow. Then you blink and yo, it's been 9 years. Like it just happens like that. And then also to go back and say it too, like the working out thing, it does put you into a better mindset. Like that was one of the things that I loved, every morning getting up. And some days you're like, man, I really don't want to work out today, but when you come walking out of the gym, you're like, man, I'm glad I did that today. I
Oh yeah.
needed that. I mean, it's a big part of your everyday like health. I mean, and even if you can only do it for 10 or 15 minutes, put that time in, it's definitely worth it.
I mean,
um,
I mean, not only that, but I always like to just think of it as a comparison, and this isn't just the gym, this isn't just Mortal Kombat, not even just work, it's just life.
yeah.
Legit, you have to think of someone could be outworking me in that moment.
Yep.
At the
Hmm.
gym, like, oh, I don't want to go, but someone's in there right now.
Yep.
They're putting in the
Yep.
work. I don't want to play the game. Well, someone's doing it.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that is where, I mean, that's what separates those who are content where they're at and those who are wanting to be great.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, that's honestly the reason why I would say Damascus Gaming is doing so well. I mean, like, I look back when we first started this company up. I mean, Luis, like, we didn't really have, this manual in front of us. You need to do these
No.
things, or anyone to even compare ourselves with. We just
Yep.
jumped in. Let's just get this thing on. And a lot of our lessons learned have been through us just getting in there and getting our hands dirty. I mean, we've had a lot of really
Hmm.
great mentors along the way, people to really show us, like, hey, like, don't do this. Like, I was there, years ago. I'm telling you, like, you want to avoid this. But in the same regard, we've also made those lessons on our own. And I would
Yep.
say, like, just like from honestly, when I hear people say, like, I mean, I have this dream, and you ask them, cool, what are you doing to accomplish that dream? Because somebody else is also working towards that too. So what are you going to do to go get it?
Mhm.
And when they're like, hey, I haven't really started yet, it's like, if you don't start now, you're
What are you
never going to
waiting on?
start. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, when are you gonna do it? I mean,
No.
Opportunities don't come
I,
knocking at your door. You have
I
to
mean,
go seek them out.
Yeah.
here's the thing is no one can force you to do it. You have to be wanting to be determined to do it
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and that's something that, I love watching when you get up there and you play. And
Yep.
like I'll say this, like I get so amped up, like I always make everyone
It's
laugh.
emotional.
Yeah,
It is very
whenever.
emotional.
It is really emotional,
Yeah,
and then not only for a player, but just someone who's watching.
yeah,
They're always
Mhm.
like people. I've seen people tell me like, "Man, I was on the edge of my seat. Like it was so intense." And
Mhm.
yeah,
and that's why, you know, well, I'm gonna get really off, not really off topic, because it does tie along as to why originally I wanted to do esports, is for that same reason, because it's looked upon now, it's starting to get the recognition,
yep,
10 years ago, it probably wasn't looked upon as,
Nope.
esports this big, how it's growing, right?
Yeah.
And now, you have like an audience.
Yep.
There are people who are on the edge of their seat because they don't know what's gonna happen. And that's the same feeling that you get when you go to a professional sports game.
Yep.
NBA, MLB, NFL, you don't know what's gonna happen. Like it's just it has you on the edge of your seat, and you just are really looking forward to those moments.
Oh yeah, it's adrenaline pumping. I mean, and that's like my thing. Like even like when I'm here, like watching like live on Twitch or YouTube or whatever, I'm jumping out of my seat, screaming, yelling, going insane.
And he really is jumping out of his seat,
Yeah.
guys.
Oh yeah, I believe it. I believe it. My parents are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And actually, this is a perfect segue into the next thing too, because I want to ask, right? So let's go back, when you were first starting off. Because as you said, esports has really evolved over the years. I remember when I was a kid growing up, necessarily being called a gamer was not a compliment. There were a lot of
Yeah.
people that would look at us and go, you spend all your time in front of the screen. Like, why aren't you outside doing something? Like, dude, I do outside and I spend time in the sun, but I also like to play. Like, I also enjoy playing video games. But people just didn't understand it. So, as an aspiring esport athlete, back when you were first starting off in the FGC, what was the reaction that your family had, that your friends had? Were they overall supportive? Were they kind of doubtful? Like, what was the initial reaction, and then how did that evolve as your career went along?
So, friend group, I mean, I grew up playing games with friends like many years. But that started to like kind of die off a little bit
Yeah,
because I actually went into fighting games while they still stayed playing like sports games, Call of Duty. But I actually wanted to just go into fighting games. The moment I learned that there was a competitive scene for NRS, NetherRealm Studios, um, was what just really started making me, chase goals or set goals for myself, saying like I'll watch other top players and be like, I want to do that. Like I want to be that player in that moment, that type of opportunity. Like so, I'm gonna do it. And even like in the very beginning, my parents were not supportive. I tell people that, and people do not believe it. Because especially if you know me now, my parents are really supportive.
Mama
They're
Gambler and Papa Gambler are a
they
staple in the
are
MK community now.
super supportive. They're super supportive. But in the very beginning, they weren't, or
yeah,
not necessarily my dad who wasn't, but my mom. She was not 100% behind it. She would tell me, go
She was a skeptic.
outside, go do something else, get off the
yeah,
game, and that
Yeah.
is so common as a gamer, though. For your parents to tell you that,
yeah.
I get it. It's so
Mm-hmm.
common, especially at a younger age. The teenage age. I get it. How are you supposed to really explore life? And this is why I brought up like make sure to do so because we're
Yeah.
not getting younger.
Yep.
Um, but over the years, the more and more my parents saw the passion that I had, the more they started to come along and be wanting to be a part of that. They wanted to support it. They're like, "We are behind you. You have our full support. Like, do what you love to do." And that is, as a parent, to watch your child like have such. Obviously, I don't know because I'm not a parent myself, but to be able to put myself in their shoes, watching the child, like my child, let's just say, have such passion for whatever they are wanting to do, whether it's a hobby or whatever they want to like chase in life, I'm fully going to be supportive of them. I'm not going to want to shoot down their goals. If anything, I'd want to encourage. And that's exactly what my parents at the moment, they just saw it in the very beginning. They just saw it as something extra. They didn't really think anything of it. And then when they said he's actually, he's doing it, like he's making a name for himself on what he's doing, and we as parents just want to be behind him. And that's exactly how it's growth. I mean, now like y'all said, they're staples in the Mortal Kombat community. People know them. They go to events with me.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, they're watching events on Twitch. My parents have Twitch accounts and
Yep.
are in Twitch like other people's streams, regardless if I'm there or not.
Yep.
Like they're just watching and supporting tournaments. They're supporting the scene.
Yep.
That's how we all grow too.
Yeah. No, it's a special
Absolutely.
thing. I mean, I had like a very similar, when I was younger, my parents were not a fan of the gaming. It was, man, get outside, go play with your friends. You're wasting your time doing this. And even when I told them, hey, I'm going into business to start an esports organization, my dad's initial question was like, son, are you really sure you want to do this? And that's the thing is like, I understand parents having those questions because like you look at it and you go, it's a video game. Like how on earth can you make a living or even like carve out anything from this? But the reality is that it's changed so much. And I would say like every type of entertainment over the years has probably gone through the exact same level of skepticism. Like even if you probably go back to when like the written word first started really coming out and people were like, why are you sitting in front of this reading, like these words? Like stop, like go and like hunt something or whatever. Obviously I'm being kind of like funny about this, but the end result it is though, as esports continues to evolve, and like I'd say now parents like at a way younger age are starting to realize, hey, like this is a real thing for my kids. I mean, we had when we were doing the Comic-Con event, I mean, which you were there for that, I had parents asking me, hey, what are you doing for the school districts here? Because I want to get my kids involved. And I'm sitting there
Yep.
going, my parents would have been like, nah, man, you are not getting my kid behind a game in school. Get out of here. And yet now we have parents going, I want these avenues for my children to be able to explore. And it's super awesome. And I gotta say, whenever I see your parents at events, they are just so excited to see you up there competing. We talk about the Twitch thing. My parents have Twitch accounts too. They do it just to support Damascus Gaming because they love seeing what we're doing. But it's a special thing, and I really think, as esports goes and grows more in the future as well, like we'll see even more of that. Um,
Absolutely.
but
Oh yeah.
I bring that up because even if like there may be some parents that are being brought here by their kids saying, hey mom, hey dad, look, like this is a Mortal Kombat pro and his parents support him, look at what he does day in and day out. They can bring their like parents here and like listen to this conversation and know it's not just playing a video game. That's not what esports is. If you think that's what it is, you're wrong. And I mean, just being like completely honest with you, it's the difference
It's
between
like,
playing pickup football and the professional leagues in the NFL.
yup,
It's a completely different experience. Um,
exactly.
Oh yeah.
and Luis, I know you you wanted to ask them to that, but I mean, it's
No,
just
yeah, like it's like throwing a ball around. It's does not equate being a professional baseball player,
yeah,
right? It's not the same thing. And I will say for all those parents out there that still have some doubt and skepticism, and I know that probably a lot of these words will ring deaf in their ears, but Joey here has been able to travel the world just in the past year alone because of what he does and how devoted he is to what he does. Right, Joey? We've been to France, we've been to Canada, we've been to Brazil,
Yep.
and we're gonna keep on going on these journeys.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's still many more adventures, many more journeys to still experience.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Jinx. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
So
not for long. Yeah.
I do want to start kind of wrapping this up a little bit, but one of the things that I do want to ask, so I have two like more questions. This is going to be more geared towards newer players that are coming into the FGC and they are looking at becoming, the next KingGambler, the next, Mighty
Sonic Funk.
Unjust. Yeah, like just like, really getting out there. My question is, I guess, on their behalf, because I get emails almost every day about this now. How do I become an FGC pro? Like, I'm brand new. Where do I really start?
I mean, it's just all about being able to just either be on Twitch and watching, a player who's streaming the game, being in there, being engaging, asking questions, entering tournaments. That's the perfect like staple. I think what holds people back is the fear of losing, that they don't want to basically get into it. But that's basically like pulling off the band-aid. I mean, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to do it eventually, especially if you want to be able to be great within whatever fighting game you're wanting to pursue. Being able to just ask questions, I think that's a huge thing also is people like they are afraid to ask questions, but the thing is like when you ask, like someone else probably also has that question, or they probably thought about it and they never got an answer, but they want to hear, what is the true answer if there's an answer for it. Because I'm really like engaging. I really love to help anyone who's got a question because I was once in that stage too. In the very beginning, I was asking so many questions left and right. I know one of my like people who like maybe the player I am today, like I used to bug him every day of every week asking the same question because I was so confused. And look at like it pays off and
Yeah.
that's okay. So just whoever you can connect with and whoever you're able to, look up to as far as what you want to learn, just ask them and get yourself out there, because
Yeah.
and it's a long journey. Not
Absolutely.
everyone is great right away. Guys have been doing it for years. You just gotta hang in there, stay patient, and stay on the work
Yeah.
grind.
And
Absolutely.
I will add this too. That advice goes for literally anything you want to do in life. If you want to
Yep.
be anything that is worth anything, that advice right there is what you need to listen to. Like, that's the one thing. And I understand because I get younger kids that come in and go, hey, I've been playing, Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, for like 2 weeks. I'm ready to join Damascus Gaming. And I'm like, you're not there yet. And I'm not saying
No.
that to try to like break their hearts or break them down. It's like there's a journey that you have to go on first to get to that point.
Yep.
Like it's part of the journey. You have to go there.
Oh yeah.
So Luis, I'm gonna give you a chance to ask any questions you want to because I got one more that I want to ask. Kind of like of a more like light question. Do you have anything you want to?
No, not really. You've been covering everything that I've been thinking about. I guess one of the things that I would say a lot of parents have doubts about is if you can eke out a living out of streaming and out of playing games professionally, right? Be an esports player. And if, like, without going into numbers, but, like, if you could tell them, like, how you support yourself, Joey, a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do this full time. And you hear here's the funny thing is you always hear about it, but you never meet someone who does it. Like I still like when people ask me like here in Texas, like, hey, what do you do for work? Like when they're trying to get to know me, I'm like, oh, I'm a professional esports player, and they're like, so is that your full-time job? I'm like, yeah, it is. I said I'm legit a competitor and I'm a content creator. You're able to, especially with how content is another like method that is significantly growing every year, month,
Oh, yeah.
day, you name it. Whatever social media platform you're on, it is growing fast. Like
Yep.
it's amazing. So yeah, I'm doing Twitch. Plan to, also was on the YouTube grind. I need to get back to that. I understand I've been slacking on that, but yes, Twitch and then being a full-time competitor is my full-time job. I was able to move out. I'm on my own. I left my parents. As you can tell, like this is my own like
By the way, check
You're at
out the
home.
I
neon
guess
signs. Look at
room
that.
area. So yeah, I'm able to do it. I haven't struggled yet to, pay bills. I've paid everything on time. I'm doing good for myself. So I just want to let anyone who is concerned or is wondering if you can do it full time, you can. It's not something that happens right away.
Yeah.
That's what I will say.
Takes a lot of hard work and dedication to
It takes time.
climb that mountain. Yep.
You can't just
Journey.
like say, "Oh, I've been playing the game for 2 weeks, so it's time to quit my full-time job and just get into it." Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I
journey-
want
Be
to
smart
tell
about it, yeah.
people- I want to tell people like, hey, like if you have any like thoughts of wanting to get into content creation, like please do it, but also realize you're not just gonna like pop off right away.
Yeah.
Like that also takes a lot of time and energy.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, it's the same thing as going to college. Like, you don't just walk into a hospital like right when you get out of high school and go, "I'm ready to be a surgeon tomorrow." It's like you got some schooling and stuff to learn before you get there. It's the same thing. And by the way,
To get
you have to put yourself through college, so you better go get a part-time job or something
Oh, yeah.
because textbooks aren't free, and neither is your tuition. So, it's
or food.
yeah. But so my more lighthearted question, because I actually am curious about this. What is your favorite Mortal Kombat title that you have played so far?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mortal Kombat Deception.
And why is it your favorite?
Mortal Kombat Deception because it was not the first 3D game that was made within the Mortal Kombat era, but they introduced so many like beautiful like characters to the franchise that I still like to this day, like whenever a new Mortal Kombat is coming out, like I like pray for those characters who were back then to come back now, which a good amount of them did. So to see that, like basically from back then, whenever I was playing that left and right on a PlayStation 2, or I played that with family, to see that from back then, to see it in the game that I'm doing like professionally now, beautiful, love
That's
it.
awesome. And
Mortal
then,
Kombat Deception.
yeah. And then, what is your favorite non-fighting game? Could be any generation.
I think it's Elden
I
Ring right now.
It's well, not for me. If I'm definitely going to. Ooh, okay. I actually have two.
Okay.
Okay, and
Okay.
two different answers. Um, Individually, I would say definitely Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I'm talking all the way back in the Xbox 360 days.
Yes,
I'm not
sir.
talking
The
about the
original.
recent.
Yes,
I'm not talking about
sir.
the
I
recent.
support that. I support
Yes,
that
sir.
100%.
And I'm talking about the OG Call of Duty Modern
Let's
Warfare
go.
2. That is, I would be on that every night or before school in the morning if I had the opportunity.
Yep.
But there's that.
Uh-huh.
But a big one that has a huge impact on me is the Left 4 Dead franchise. And the reason
Okay.
for
Interesting.
that, the reason for that is because that was a game that me and my dad actually grew up.
That's
Like,
cool.
we could play that. Me and him, we took turns. That was our game.
Yeah.
We would take turns. He never wanted to be the survivors. He only wanted to be infected. But that's basically, that is always gonna hold such a huge like. It holds
He
a
just wanted to
huge place
torture
in
you.
my heart. No, he didn't. No, he just wanted to be able to kill the survivors, and he wanted me to be the survivor to survive. So yeah, but
that is.
definitely Left 4 Dead franchise, but also Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
I
Those are
respect
two
it.
great
Non Mortal
titles.
Kombat.
Dude, I respect it, man. Those are two great choices, too. So,
Oh, yeah.
all right, we're going to be signing off. Before we do so, Gambler, where can people find you? So, if they want to continue this conversation on your content, where do they need to go?
Sure. I mean, if you ever have any questions, or if you ever just want to, talk or get to know me more, you can find me at well, is it X or is it Twitter? What do I call it these days? I guess
I still call it Twitter. I'll be
I
honest
call it
with you.
Twitter. Okay, that's what I know. That's what I know it as. You can find me on Twitter at KingGambler18, and it's the same thing on Twitch.tv/KingGambler18. I'm always welcoming. I love to engage and chat with anyone if they ever want to get to know me or just have a question. Feel free to ask me anything.
Sweet. Sounds like a plan.
Thank
All
you for
right.
coming, KingGambler.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
absolutely. Dude, it's always a pleasure having you around, man. We have loved having you be a part of Damascus Gaming. We can't wait to see what you're going to do in the next season. So we're excited about that. For everybody that watched, thank you so much for lending us your ear for the past 40 minutes now. We will be back next week with another episode. Not sure who we're going to have on just yet, but as always, these will be coming out weekly. If you want to learn more about what we do in Damascus Gaming, come check out our website at damascusgaming.com. You'll find all of our socials on there as well as our merchandise. But we appreciate every single one of you and the support that you give us. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.